Bible study started January of 1993. What I was doing out of that Bible study, I was sending all kinds of people to Teen Challenge, and I backed them up. There was a waiting list. So you had these people that were wanting to get their life right in the valley, and I had them on a waiting list. So my hand was forced, so to speak. I was forced to open the facility to get people in. So on April 15th of 1994 was when we launched the men's home. And then in 1996, we launched the women's home.
How did you do that financially? Like, were you, like, how did that come about?
You know what we did? So when I started the Bible study, there were a lot of connections being built in the valley. There was a reputation that was being built that I didn't know about. I'm just doing God's work. I'm bringing the gospel to drug addicts. But the more I did that, the more, my name kind of got out there, and there were people in the valley that were in the shadows that I didn't know about that came out and said, we want to support it when we opened up the men's home. Wow. And so financially, because I wasn't going to open up a place where you charge, no drug addicts, well, the ones I know didn't have insurance.
Amen.
They didn't have insurance. They didn't have the money to go through a program. So when we opened it, the vision was to open, provide them the place, the sanctuary for God to grow in the things of the Lord, and to provide it free because they wouldn't have money. And so the community came together and supported that. And that's the way it's been ever since. It's been a miracle to watch God's hand throughout the years. His fingerprints are everywhere when it comes to not only change lives through there, but also the financial support. And even through this pandemic, God has continued to be faithful to meet the needs of the ministry.
What age did you get into drugs, and how did that unfold?
I started doing drugs. I started with marijuana and beer. I was raised with 3 brothers. We had no sisters. And, to be nice about it, we were pretty wild. My father had means, he was well known in the community. So that kind of kept us out of jail a lot, so, but we got I was the only one out of the brothers that graduated high school, and that was a miracle in itself. My other brothers were kicked out and had to attend continuation. I started drinking with my brother. I have a brother who's a year older. Him and I started drinking and smoking pot right around 7th grade for me. I think he may have started a year before that. So it started with marijuana, but then when I really got hooked on drugs, when I was 14 years old, I was a freshman in high school, and I was at a friend's house that lived right around the corner. And we were there, we were just partying, there was 6 or 8 of us. We were drinking beer in his living room, and all of a sudden somebody pulled out a mirror and threw some white powder on it. I had not seen cocaine ever before. I hadn't seen any drugs outside of marijuana. I'd never encountered that. But my inhibitions were worn down from the alcohol. I wasn't thinking too straight. But when they pulled it out and put that on the mirror and started to pass it around, I started to sweat. I was so nervous. I thought, what's this going to do to my life? My father constantly said, I don't care whatever you do, never do drugs. And that kept going over and over in my mind. And when the mirror came to me, I'm sitting there on the sofa and the straw is there. Rather than pass it, I was worried about what they were going to think of me if I was the only one that didn't do it. So I did
Peer pressure.
Yeah, peer pressure. Yeah. Totally, man. Totally. There's nothing worse than when you're loaded on alcohol and peer pressure comes in. Yeah. It's going to make you do some crazy stuff. And I did. I did the line, and I got to tell you, Isaac, I was hooked immediately. I would generally do it every weekend, and then there were times during the week I did it. But when my little brother was killed, that's when it really shot through the roof in an uncontrollable way that led to heroin. I even went to Philadelphia. My parents were raised in Philadelphia. I went to live with my grandmother, and I was running from the drug addiction. And really, see, that's the thing. How do you deal with the sin in your heart? This isn't a geographical problem.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you move to, you're taking your heart with you. And so I ran there because I saw myself getting out of control. I ran to Philadelphia, lived with my grandparents. They loved me. And I found drugs over there. I started scoring cocaine there. I even had it Federal Express to me from Imperial Valley.
Wow.
Yeah, and then my dad called one day and he said, "Hey, look, we're starting a new business. It's going to be Sunrise Ranches, and I'd like you to be the salesman." So I came back. I think I was about 21 years old then. Got into business with my father. I handled the sales, and my habit only escalated. And then I remember one day, my father shows up at my apartment with his head secretary, and he's got legal papers, and he said, "Son, I got to take your name off the business." I said, "Why?"
He knew you were doing drugs?
Yeah, he saw my life out. It's funny because when you're on drugs, you generally don't think that other people are seeing, but your life is changing, right? Your character changes, everything about you begins to change. Your morals change, your integrity changes, your character just totally changes through drugs. And my habit escalated. I started smoking crack. We were cooking it up in cigar tubes, and I was just getting high all night and going to work, and they saw the difference. They saw that business became sloppy. I wasn't taking care of what I should have taken care of. So they saw my life unraveling, and they saw the change for the worse just taking place before their very eyes.